I'm 44 and a mother to a teenage daughter who used to be my best friend. We were close in a way that made people jealous. Girls' weekends, inside jokes, matching tattoos when she turned 18. I used to think, whatever happens in life, at least I have her. But now, I'm not even sure she likes me, and worse, I've started to wonder if she ever really did. It's been 4 weeks since my marriage blew up in my face, and I've only just now gathered the strength to talk about it. Not to friends, not to family, just here, where I can spill it without being interrupted by judgment or pity. This whole thing started one quiet Thursday evening, one of those uneventful nights where nothing seems off, but something in the air just feels wrong. My husband, Chris, 45, was sitting on the patio sipping whiskey like he always does. Our daughter, Erin, 19, had just come home from college for summer break. She said she was too tired to eat with us, and holed up in her room with the door locked. I didn't think anything of it. Teenagers are. But there was a tension in her voice when she said goodnight, and I couldn't shake it. The next morning, I got a message request on Instagram. I assumed it was spam, but the username caught my eye. It was something like, "Truth for Mom," with no profile, just one message. "He's not who you think he is. Check Erin's messages." That was it. Just that one. And for a second I laughed. It was so vague, it almost felt like a prank. But that night, something made me bring it up casually, like a joke, just to see her reaction. She froze. Not dramatically, not in a gotcha, just a flicker in her expression, a pause, and then she shrugged it off and said she had no idea what I was talking about. I didn't push, but I didn't forget it either. That was the first crack. What happened, well, destroyed my entire family. After that strange message and Erin's too casual reaction, I couldn't stop. I tried to shake it, but something just wouldn't let me. You know that gut feeling that keeps whispering, "You're missing something. Look closer." I ignored it for a couple of days, told myself I was being paranoid. Then, on Saturday night, Chris left his phone in the kitchen. He always takes it with him. Always. Even to the bathroom. So when I saw it just sitting there next to the sink, unlocked, my heart started racing. I wasn't proud of it, but I opened his messages. Nothing. A few texts from coworkers, a group chat with his brothers, a dumb meme from one of his old college friends. Clean. Too clean. But here's the thing. It was too normal. Chris is a middle-aged man who can barely keep up with email. Suddenly he's deleting messages? Hiding things? That's not how he is. Or maybe that's what I used to think. Then I remembered the original message. Check Erin's messages. That night, while Erin was asleep, I did something I never thought I'd do. I picked up her iPad, the one she never uses anymore, and prayed it was still synced to her phone, and God help me, it was. At first I didn't see anything strange. Just college group chats, memes, homework stuff. I almost felt stupid for going through it. But then I noticed a thread that made me go cold. It was titled, Dad. Dad, not Chris. Just Dad, in all caps. There were only 5 messages in the thread. The most recent one was from 2 weeks ago, and all it said was, "I told you not to do this. What if she finds out?" There was no reply from Erin. None before that either. Just a string of messages from Chris to her. She deleted her side of the conversation. The second to last message was sent the day before. "Just act normal, please. We'll figure this out later." I sat on the floor holding that iPad, unable to breathe. Figure what out? Why would my husband be messaging our daughter behind my back and telling her to act normal? What the hell were they hiding? I wanted to wake her up and scream. I wanted to storm out to the patio and demand answers. But instead, I stayed sitting there in the dark, reading the same 5 lines over and over until they blurred together. That's when I remembered something else. Back in March, Erin came home unexpectedly for a weekend. She said she was sick and needed to rest, but I barely saw her the whole time. She stayed in her room, curtains drawn, and Chris, he kept checking on her. I thought it was sweet at the time, that he was just being a good stepdad. Now I wasn't so sure. I didn't sleep that night. My brain wouldn't stop spiraling. Every family photo, every memory, every hug, they all started to feel fake, manufactured, like there was something ugly just beneath the surface the whole time, and I was the only one who couldn't see it. Worst part? The more I thought about it, the more I started to believe Erin wanted me to find out. Why else keep the iPad synced? Why delete her replies but leave his? It felt like a setup. But for what? I didn't say anything the next day. I couldn't. My head was a war zone, torn between confrontation and denial. I kept staring at Chris over breakfast, wondering what secrets were buried behind his calm smile and quiet coffee sipping. Erin barely came out of her room. When she did, she looked at me like she was waiting, watching, but she didn't say a word either. I kept asking myself, what are they hiding from, and why does it feel like I'm supposed to find it? By Monday, I couldn't take it anymore. I left work early, made sure Erin was still asleep, and decided to check Chris's home office. He rarely locked it, and that morning, luck, or something more twisted, was on my side. The door creaked open. I didn't even know what I was looking for. Just something. A sign, a file, a photo. Proof that I hadn't completely lost my mind. What I found was worse. There was a folder on his desk, slightly tucked under a stack of papers. It had no label, just a thin black tab. Inside were printed copies of emails. Not work-related, not financial, personal. The sender? Aaron? The recipient? A woman I'd never heard of. The subject lines made my stomach turn. She still doesn't know. Don't worry, I've got him under control. Just wait. It's happening soon. There were 9 emails total. Some from Aaron, some from the mystery woman. But the tone was the same. Cold, calculated, and unmistakably real. In one message, the woman said, "He's starting to crack. She'll see it soon. Keep pushing her." And Aaron replied, "She's paranoid already. I'll leave breadcrumbs, just like we planned." Breadcrumbs. I nearly dropped the folder. My hands were shaking so badly I had to sit down. My own daughter was planting clues. On purpose. She wanted me to suspect something. She wanted me to go through her stuff. She wanted me to think Chris was hiding something, and he was. But maybe not what I thought. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just a lie. It was a trap. And I was walking straight into it. But why? Why would my daughter want to destroy my marriage? Why would she be working with some random woman behind my back? Unless she wasn't random at all. I flipped through the folder again. One of the email signatures had a name, Monica R., and next to it a personal Gmail. That name stuck in my head all day, Monica R. Later that night, I was in bed pretending to sleep, while Chris watched TV in the living room, and Aaron was, again, locked in. I typed Monica R plus Chris plus past into Google, not expecting anything, but then I saw it. An old tagged photo on a forgotten Facebook page, a group photo from nearly 20 years ago. Chris and a woman with bright green eyes, curly dark hair, and a familiar smirk, Monica Reynolds. His ex-fiancée. They were engaged before he met. She left him abruptly. At least that's what he always said. Claimed she ran off with someone else and shattered him. He never liked talking about her. So tell me, why is my daughter emailing her? Why is she plotting with her? And most importantly, what do they want from me? The second I saw her face, I knew it was her. Monica Reynolds. The ghost from Chris's past he never wanted to talk about. He used to call her the one that wrecked me, and I'd always believed it. Hell, I pitied him. Now, just seeing her face made me feel sick. I couldn't sleep that night. I lay in bed next to a man who I suddenly wasn't sure I knew at all, wondering how deep this went. How long had they been in contact? What had Erin been told? What did she believe? The next day, I did something I never thought I'd do. I called out of work, told Chris I had a doctor's appointment, and drove 2 towns over to my sister's place. She's a lawyer. I didn't tell her everything, just enough to raise red flags. She looked at me and said, "Whatever this is, it's bigger than you think." And she was right. Later that evening, back at home, I waited until Aaron left for the gym and Chris was in the shower. I had maybe 20 minutes. I grabbed his laptop, which he rarely used anymore, and took it into the laundry room, the one room in the house with no windows, no echo, and no chance of someone walking in accidentally. It wasn't password protected. That alone made me nervous. Chris was always careful. But the moment I opened his browser, I understood why. He wanted me to. One tab was still open, an email draft. It was addressed to Monica, but it wasn't sent. It read, "I think she's starting to put things together. I'm trying to keep Aaron out of it, but she's making it impossible. This isn't how we planned it. If you're still serious about what you said, we need to talk. In person. No more secrets." My heart dropped. Not only was he in contact with, but Aaron wasn't just a pawn. She was in the plan. And now? Now she was going off script. What kind of plan? What were they trying to do? What had Aaron messed up? What was Chris afraid of? I copied the email onto a flash drive I'd hidden in my purse, snapped a picture of the screen just in case, and shut the laptop. I had just enough time to throw it back in the study before Chris walked in, towel over his shoulder, asking what was for dinner. I told him I had a headache. I couldn't even look at him without feeling nauseous. But that night, Aaron made it worse. While I was loading the dishwasher, she came up behind me and asked, casually, if I ever missed being single. I turned to her, confused. She was smirking. I asked her what she meant. She shrugged, said, "You know," before everything got so routine, and then she walked away. She didn't say it like a daughter teasing her mom. She said it like someone dangling a string in front of a cat, waiting to see if I'd pounce. And I realized something chilling. Aaron wanted me to crack, not Chris. Me. This wasn't just about exposing a secret. It wasn't about betrayal or infidelity. It was personal, which means the question isn't just why she's doing it, but what the hell I did to deserve it. After Aaron dropped that little comment in the kitchen, I didn't say anything. I just watched her walk away like she hadn't just lit a match and tossed it into the middle of my sanity. That's when I knew for sure. This wasn't about Chris. It was me. She wanted me to feel like I was losing my mind. But why? I tried to think back. Was it something I said? Something I missed? Had I pushed her too hard about school? About her friends? Had I hurt her without realizing it? Nothing fit. Aaron had always been closer to me than anyone, even Chris. Especially Chris. He was the fun stepdad, sure, but when it came to real stuff, it was always me and her. At least that's what I thought, until Tuesday night. That evening, I poured myself a glass of wine, something I rarely did anymore, and sat in bed with the iPad again. I still had access to Erin's synced messages, and I had to know if she was still talking to Monica. I didn't even know what I hoped to find, but the messages were gone. Not just some of them, all of them. The thread was wiped clean. Every conversation, every contact, like it had never existed. She knew I was watching, and that scared me more than anything. She didn't panic. She didn't lash out. She just cleaned up her trail, silently, smoothly, which means she was prepared, and she knew I wouldn't confront her. The next morning, I got the answer to a question I hadn't even asked yet. A letter, no return address, left in our mailbox. Just a white envelope, my name in handwriting that looked familiar. Inside was a single printed page. It wasn't a letter. It was a screenshot, an old one. It was a text thread, from me to someone named Nathan, a man I hadn't spoken to in over 20 years. He was my college ex, a man I reconnected with briefly when Erin was maybe 13. The messages were from. I recognized them immediately. Just a few flirty exchanges that never led to. It had been nothing, literally nothing. I never even met up with him. But Chris had found out at the time. Had a fight, and I swore it off. It never came up again. But somehow Erin had found those messages, and now someone had printed them and sent them. No note, no explanation. Just the words I'd written, preserved like a weapon, a memory I had buried, now suddenly yanked. I just stared at my stomach. No way Erin was old enough to remember. She would have been in her room. We never even said his name, unless Chris had told me recently, maybe during one of their secret. My chest like it was caving in. Why would they bring that up now? What were they building toward? I sat there for hours, holding that single sheet of paper, knowing, absolutely knowing, that this was just one piece of something bigger. This wasn't just about pushing me out of my marriage. It felt like they were trying to erase me altogether. I hid the envelope under the bathroom sink. I didn't want to risk throwing it out. I wanted the proof, because no matter how crazy this all started to feel, I needed reminders that I wasn't making it up, that someone really was trying to break me down piece by piece. But the question still burned through me. Why now? Why bring up a 20-year-old mistake that never even turned into anything? Why send it anonymously when I already knew who was behind it? Later that day, while pretending to scroll through recipes on my phone, I searched Erin's college tuition account. Chris and I had split the payments, part from savings, part from a loan in our name. Erin didn't qualify for much aid, and she'd barely applied for scholarships. That had been a whole argument last year, but this time, something didn't add up. A payment had been made just 2 weeks ago. A large one, $11,400. Not from our account, not from her own, from an account labeled only as private benefactor. My heart dropped. I ran through every possibility in my head. A scholarship? An anonymous donor? Family? But there was only one person it could be. Monica. I don't know how I knew, but I did. Everything in my body told me this wasn't just coincidence. Someone was funding Erin. Someone who wanted her loyalty. Someone with a reason to invest in turning her against me. I didn't want to believe it, but the more I thought about it, the more the timeline made sense. Erin started pulling away from me around January. Chris started staying out later around then too. I chalked it up to work stress, growing pains, typical family friction. But what if it wasn't? What if Monica never really left? What if she was always lurking in the background, waiting, and now she had my daughter? I sat with that thought all night. It curled around my brain like smoke. If Monica was pulling the strings, what was her goal? Revenge? Closure? Or something worse? Around 1 a.m., I finally decided to search for her online in earnest. New name, new city, married once, divorced, no kids. But I found something buried. A small real estate listing from 2 years ago, a modest house in the next county. The agent's notes caught my eye. Sold quickly after private off-market deal. Buyer moved to be closer to family. Family. It clicked. I cross-referenced the address. It was less than 15 minutes from Erin's college. I felt like I couldn't breathe. She hadn't met Monica online. She hadn't, accidentally, reached out. She'd known exactly where to find her, and I couldn't help but think. Chris told her where to look, which means the only real mystery left is why they brought Monica back at all, and what Erin thinks she's going to gain from tearing everything down. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that $11,400 payment, that faceless email from Monica, Erin smirking in the kitchen like she already knew how this story ends. But I wasn't ready to play victim yet. If they were going to trap me in some twisted little web, I was going to make sure they got tangled in it too. The next morning, I waited until Chris left for work, which I was now almost certain meant Monica's house. Erin was still asleep, and I knew her password. She never changed it. I told myself if I found nothing, I'd drop it. I didn't find nothing. I found a draft, an unsent email, buried deep in the Notes app of her phone. Not even the Mail app, just a hidden draft she must have typed up and saved, like she was rehearsing it. Here's what it said. I know she'll lose it when it happens, but it's not like she was ever really there. Always working, always somewhere else. Chris was the only one who showed up. He actually cared. She never even asked me what I wanted. Not once. I just stood there, mouth dry, fingers numb. That was about me. That had to be about me. I scrolled further. There were more. Another one read, "It'll all be mine eventually anyway. He said so. I just need to be patient." What the hell did that mean? What would be hers? The house? The money? Chris? I couldn't breathe. My own daughter had written that, and she had written it like I was the problem, like I was some footnote in her life she couldn't wait to erase. And then I found the one that made it all click. It was dated 2 months ago. Monica says the trust will transfer to me after the separation, but she warned me not to be too obvious. It has to come from him. He has to choose me, the trust. Oh my God, my money, my mother's inheritance. She had set up a trust in Aaron's name, but not accessible until Aaron turned 25, or if both her legal guardians, me and Chris, agreed to an early release for educational purposes. But I had never signed off on anything. I would have remembered. Unless Chris forged my signature, unless he already filed paperwork behind my back, unless this was the whole reason Monica had come back, to coach Aaron through bleeding the trust dry while splitting me from the inside out. I thought I was dealing with betrayal, but I was dealing with a con, my husband, my daughter, and the woman he once promised he hated. They were playing a long game, and I was the pawn they were trying to knock off the... But here's the thing about pawns. Sometimes they're the last ones standing. I didn't cry. Not then. I didn't scream, or confront, or burn the house down like every instinct inside me begged to do. I just stood there holding that phone, that little glowing device that had finally told me the truth, and I made a decision. I wasn't going to let them win. I didn't care if Aaron was my daughter. I didn't care if Chris was still legally my husband. I wasn't going to be some gullible, broken woman who let her life be carved up by liars in her own house. I needed proof, not gut feelings, not drafts and whispers. I needed documents, and Chris had a safe. It was hidden behind the bookshelf in his office. A secret I only knew because I caught him opening it years ago when he thought I was out. I had asked him about it once. He said it was where he kept old tax stuff. I never asked again. I should have. It took me 20 minutes and a screwdriver to get to it, and inside? It wasn't tax stuff. It was our marriage certificate, Aaron's birth certificate, and a copy of my mother's trust agreement. But the real blow, a signed document. 2, actually. One releasing a partial trust for educational advancement location, a notarized form transferring of attorney regarding my signature was on both. I hadn't signed. The handwriting was close enough that no one outside the family, it wasn't mine, forged it. And the notary? It was a name I didn't recognize until I searched. A woman in Monica's hometown, a mobile notary, used for real estate deals and private contracts. A woman who likely had no idea the signature wasn't real. That was it. That was the smoking gun. They were stealing from, grooming Aaron to take everything, turning her against me, feeding her lies. Maybe even the idea that I didn't love her, that I'd abandoned her emotionally, just to get access to money that was never. All of it masked as helping Aaron get ahead. All of it engineered to erase me. I took photos of everything. I scanned the documents, uploaded copies to a secure folder in the cloud, and forwarded it to my sister, the lawyer. I didn't include any explanation, just the documents. The time would come to explain. By then it was almost midnight. The house was silent. I walked into Erin's room. She was asleep, her hair splayed across the pillow like she hadn't just helped orchestrate the slow destruction of my life. I stood in the doorway, staring at her. I don't know how long. Something about it broke my heart more than anything else ever had. Not just because she betrayed me, but because somewhere along the way, I must have failed her too. She had to believe I was the villain, and someone, Monica, made sure she believed it. But I wasn't going to let them use my daughter as a pawn in a war for money. They'd dragged me into their game. They were about to regret it. The next morning, I didn't say a word. I made coffee like always. I asked Chris about his plans for the day. I even told Erin I'd be gone for a few hours and wouldn't be back until dinner. She barely looked up from her phone. I smiled, told her to order takeout if she wanted. Then I left the house. But I didn't go far. I parked 2 blocks away, walked back through a neighbor's yard, and slipped into the side alley that runs behind our house. From there, I had a direct view of the kitchen window, just enough to see movement inside. I waited. At exactly 10:52 a.m., Chris came home. Not from work. He wasn't even dressed for it. He let himself in casually, like he owned the place. Erin opened the door for him, hair still wet from the shower, wearing leggings and a hoodie. One of his, I realized as soon as she turned. They hugged. Not a quick one. Not a father-daughter kind of hug either. It lingered. Too close. Too comfortable. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. But I kept watching. They sat at the kitchen table. She pulled out a folder. The same one I had found in the safe. She showed him something. He leaned in, smiled, said something that made her laugh. Then they toasted with orange juice like it was some victory. It was all I needed to see. That was no mentorship. That was no trust-building moment. That was an alliance, and I was officially on the outside of it. I waited until they disappeared into the living room. Then I made my way back to the car, hands cold, heart like stone. I didn't even cry. I couldn't. I was too focused. Because the minute I got home, I went nuclear. I called my sister. I told her everything. Within hours, she was at the house with documents in hand, a restraining order request, a petition for immediate revocation of any unauthorized power of attorney, a cease and desist against both Chris and Monica, with Erin's name shielded for now. I told Erin and Chris to sit down. Erin rolled her eyes. Chris didn't even bother pretending. I laid every document in front of them like a bomb. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse. I informed. I told Chris that I had proof of his forgery, that the notary was being contacted, that Monica was now under investigation for fraud and financial coercion, that the trust had been frozen, that everything was on record. And then I looked at Erin. She didn't look smug anymore. She looked scared. I told her I didn't know when she stopped being my daughter and started seeing me as an obstacle, but I was done playing along. She could stay here, or she could go with him. But if she stayed, the games were over. Chris stood up, told me I was insane, that I had no proof, that I couldn't undo what had already been signed. That's when my sister pulled out the copies, and the photos, and the email from the notary agreeing to testify. His face went pale. I asked him if Monica was worth going to jail for. He didn't answer. He just walked out. He hasn't come back since. And Erin? She didn't say anything. Not that day, but something in her cracked. Something real. That night, after Chris left and the house fell silent, I sat in the kitchen alone for a long time. I didn't even turn the lights on. I just sat there in the dark, replaying every moment that led to this. Every sign I missed, every lie I swallowed, every time I chose peace over confrontation because I didn't want to admit my family was crumbling beneath my feet. Around 11 p.m., Erin came downstairs. She didn't say anything at first, just stood in the doorway like she didn't recognize me anymore. Maybe she didn't. Maybe I didn't recognize her either. Eventually, she sat across from me, and then, for the first time in weeks, she spoke like herself. She asked me if I meant it, what I said earlier, that she could stay. I told her yes, but only if she told me everything. She broke. I don't mean crying. I mean everything inside her cracked open like glass under pressure, and what came out wasn't some well-thought-out confession. It was rage, confusion, heartbreak. She started telling me things I didn't even know she had carried. She said Monica had reached out to her first, found her on social media, claimed she knew the truth about our family, claimed I had hidden things, manipulated Chris, that I was why her parents divorced, that if Erin really wanted a relationship with her father, she had to stop letting me control it. And Erin believed it, because I had made mistakes. I'd been distant, especially during her last year of high school. I'd worked too much, missed too many things. Chris had been the fun one, the easy one, and Monica had twisted that into a story where I was the villain and she was just the forgotten victim who still cared. Then came the money. Monica said the trust wasn't safe with me in control, that I would hold it over Erin forever, that Chris could get her access sooner if I stepped back. She said she just wanted Erin to be free, and Erin fell for it. She admitted to writing those emails, to deleting messages, to baiting me with passive-aggressive comments to get me to explode. She wanted me to lose control. She wanted to prove Monica right, and for a while, it worked. But when Chris forged those documents and told her not to worry, when he said I'd never find out, something shifted. She said it felt too real, like a game that had gone too far. And when I found the folder, she was glad, because deep down, she wanted me to fight back. She just didn't know how to ask. I didn't say much. I just listened. Because I could hear it, underneath all the layers of pain and manipulation, Erin was still my daughter. Still the little girl who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, who used to hold my hand when crossing the street, who used to call me her best friend. I told her I wasn't perfect, that maybe I hadn't always been present the way she needed, but I never stopped loving her, not for 1 second. She cried, hard, and then she said something I'll never forget. I thought you were weak, but you're not. You're the only one who ever protected me. It'll take time, maybe a long time, but I believe she meant it. Chris never came back. A week later, his lawyer sent over a letter threatening to contest the cease and desist and review custody claims over the trust. My sister handled it. Monica? She disappeared, deleted her social accounts. Her house went up for rent a few days after everything went down. I don't know where she went. I don't care. She's out of our lives. As for Erin and me, we're healing. It's awkward. Some days are hard, but she's still here. She's still trying. And honestly, so am I. This whole experience didn't just destroy my marriage. It destroyed every illusion I had about what love and loyalty are supposed to look like. But maybe it cleared the way for something stronger, not perfect, but real. Because now, when I look at my daughter, I don't see betrayal anymore. I see someone who got caught in someone else's storm and finally chose to walk back into the light.